A common problem that every teacher faces is how do I get my students to just be quiet? Whether it's talking while you're talking, making noises when they should be working, or having side conversations at the wrong time. Taming the talk or noise in your classroom is often a challenge for many teachers. So that's why in today's video, I am sharing how I got students in my classrooms to be quiet. Coming up next. Hey, teacher friends, Michelle Holiday here. I'm a behavior strategist, and I help teachers, schools, districts, and student-based organizations with systems, methods, tips, and insights on how to manage their students and their learning environments with less stress and less struggle. And I don't know if you're like me, but unwanted, inappropriate student talk has always been a behavior that was challenging for me to manage. And I was not going to let student talk take over my classroom. So today I am sharing the process that I use to quiet down my classroom. Are you ready? Let's get started. The first thing I did was I had conversations with my classroom. My class and I had conversations about the excessive and disrespectful talk that was going on in our classroom. And I spelled out for them what was not okay and what was. We talked about expectations and ways that we both could make changes for the better. We had a real dialogue about what needed to change in our classroom. Now, did it change every talkative student in the classroom? Absolutely not, but it definitely affected some of them. I also had these conversations on repeat every single week for a period of time until the behavior went down to what I call a decent level or my target level. And having these repeated conversations are necessary because repetition can be effective when changing student behaviors. Number two, I made room for talk. I don't want to hurt your teacher feelings, but the reality is that a lot of our students are not coming to school to learn, or at least it's not their main priority. Many of our students are motivated by being social, meeting up with their friends, hanging out with their friends, being a part of a community. So instead of fighting it, I chose to make space in my school day or my period for talk. So I created space for group discussions, whether they were academic based or social emotional or classroom behavior based. I also added talk time to my reward system and I called it social table. So it was something that they could earn, something that I could refer to during redirections. This one strategy curbed a lot of the talking behaviors in my classroom because my students knew that they would get time to talk at some point if they follow through with the rules and expectations. Number three, I addressed the talk behavior strategically. So I got real tired of saying, be quiet, be quiet, be quiet with short-term effect. So I decided to change my behavior and I got strategic. First, I took a look at when that unwanted talk or the excessive talk was happening. And then I made changes in those specific areas. So for example, I had to change my transition routine because during transition, they tended to talk too much. So I added in some music. Other classes, I had to pre-teach and tell them what I expected before we did transition. Other classes, I did a game. And some I did like what I call a silent challenge. And I even changed my redirection to one word, which was zero. And I taught my students when I say zero, this is what I expected to see happen. By being really intentional and strategic, I was able to cut down on a lot of that unwanted student talk. Number four, I reinforced the behavior I wanted to see. So to reinforce a behavior essentially is saying, how do I make this behavior stronger? So the behavior I wanted to see is for the students to talk when it was appropriate or during their designated times. And when you don't have a big budget, verbal reinforcement, token reinforcement, and activity-based reinforcement are often the way to go. And that's what I did. So my verbal reinforcement was basically verbal praise and student shout outs. And the way I delivered it, I made it fun. I made it catchy. And so they enjoyed it. They liked it and they were looking forward to it. My token reinforcers were things like points, time earned, tickets, and certificates. So I used a combination of those things, or sometimes I would focus on one type of token reinforcer per quarter. So they were able to earn something that was either visual or tangible that could possibly earn them something later on. Now, my activity reinforcers were simply choice time, classroom visits, and specific student leader positions or jobs. So choice time is something I implemented where they could earn time to do something of their choice. And I had already chosen their options. Classroom visits were a special block in time where they were allowed to visit another classroom, whether it's to help a teacher or to work with students or to do some other type of activity with that classroom. And also, there were specific student leadership positions that students could earn for that specific target behavior. If you want to conquer talk in your classroom, you're going to need ways to reinforce that behavior, especially early on, so that you can get the outcome you desire. And number 5, I consequenced it. I believe in consequences, especially classroom-based consequences. My consequences were verbal-based, token-based, and activity-based as well. And the reason why I chose these types of consequences, because number 1, they were free. And number 2, they could be maintained without outside assistance. So I didn't have to wait for someone to come to my room or for support staff to show up. This was something I could implement in the classroom in real time. So my verbal consequences were verbal correction or redirection. For me, there is a difference between the two, and I know I have a video on that, so I'll try to put in the link below. The other thing is we had one-on-one student meetings, and my one-on-one student meetings can last anywhere from 3 to 7 minutes. They're not long, but it is time I spend one-on-one with the student in the classroom where we talk specifically about that behavior and what are some quick ways that we can change it. And then I also had some token consequences, so which were really owed time or loss of points. And then my activity consequences were they had to stay in seat during choice time, they had to do think sheets or pushbacks from the table. So this is how I got multiple classrooms to cut down on excessive, unwanted student talk that was disrupting my classrooms. Every classroom culture is different, which is why I believe in having a classroom management toolbox. So these are different tools that you can pull out based on your students' needs or the unique needs of your students. And this will help you get the outcome that you're looking for, which is less talk, more teaching. If you want more strategies and methods to address student talk in your classroom, you can check out my on-demand workshop, Tame the Talk. I'll leave it in the link below, and I will see you in the next video.